Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah Kudash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. All right, it's going to be a continuation of Daniel, the 11th chapter. All right, starting at verse 25. Okay, last time we went into 24. All right, dealing with Antiochus Epiphanes. All right, and the deeds and the things that he was doing. All right, and in verse 25, I'll read it. It says, "And he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army, and the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army, but he shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against him." All right, and this is going into the sixth Syrian war. Okay, now when it says, "And he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south," all right, this was Antiochus Epiphanes, all right, making his first surge, all right, into Egypt, okay, against Ptolemy the sixth Philometor. Now, as we read in the secular history, all right, we'll get into the more details of, who was really at the head of, the king of the south at this moment, because though Ptolemy was king, really at this time he was sort of king in name, and they still had regents, all right, that were running things. Okay, so anyway, they go to war, all right, and the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army, but he shall not stand, all right, because they ended up losing that war. Okay, Antiochus defeated Ptolemy's army. Okay, so Ptolemy lost that war, and then it says, "For they shall forecast devices against him." Okay, because after that war was lost, as we're gonna read, you had two of his generals basically launch a coup, all right, and took over Ptolemy's government. Okay, so now we're gonna read the account, all right, in the book of Maccabees. See, in the book of Daniel, the 11th chapter, this is what the angel is telling Daniel that's gonna happen to our people. All right, and when you read in the book of First and Second Maccabees, that's the actual time period when these things were really happening to Jake. When these prophecies that Daniel had or was given was taken hold, all right, on Jake. So that's why we're able to, not only refer to the secular history, but we're also able to refer to the book of First and Second Maccabees, all right, to see the fulfillment, all right, of these prophecies. Okay. So in Daniel the 11th chapter, this is still a vision. All right. This is of what's going to happen. All right. So now going into the war between Antiochus and Ptolemy. Now Antiochus, all right, when you look it up, he goes into Egypt twice. All right. He has two voyages, all right, into Egypt. The first time, all right, as we're gonna read, is he basically launches a preemptive strike into Egypt because they try to, lay claim to Syria. And so he launches that, he takes over certain cities and so on and so forth. All right. And then the second time, all right, which when he goes back into Egypt during his second voyage, is when he gets stopped, all right, by the Roman embassage, the Roman envoy, Gaius Popilius Laenas. Okay, is where you get the whole thing where he drew the circle, around Antiochus. But we'll get to that. So now going to the book of First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 16. It says, "Now when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, this being Antiochus the fourth Epiphanes, he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have the dominion of two realms." Okay. Wherefore he entered into Egypt with a great multitude, all right, with chariots and elephants and horsemen and a great navy. All right, as you read here, he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army. So that's what we're reading here. All right. It says, "And made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt." All right, this being Ptolemy the sixth Philometor, all right, king of Egypt. but Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled, and many were wounded to death. Okay, thus, thus they got the strong cities in the land of Egypt, and he took the spoils thereof. All right, and that's what we're reading of in verse 25. So now we're gonna go. Let's read about the sixth Syrian war. All right, we're only gonna read this first portion here because it's dealing with the first time Antiochus went into Egypt. All right, and why he did that. So it says the causes of this conflict are obscure. In 170 BC, Eulaeus and Linnaeus, the two regents of the young king of Egypt, Ptolemy VI Philometor, declared war on the Seleucid ruler Antiochus IV Epiphanes. In the same year, Ptolemy's younger siblings, Ptolemy VIII Physcon and Cleopatra II, were declared co-rulers in order to bolster the unity of Egypt. Military operations did not begin until 169, when Antiochus quickly gained the upper hand, seizing the important strategic town of Pelusium. The Egyptians realized their folly in starting the war. Eulaeus and Linnaeus were overthrown and replaced by the two regents, Comminus and Cineas. Now, these two guys, Comminus and Cineas, as when we read it under the section of Ptolemy, it'll give you more details because they're the ones who actually launched that coup, all right, and took over Ptolemy's government. So it says, and envoys were sent to negotiate a peace treaty with Antiochus. Antiochus took Ptolemy VI, who was his nephew, all right, and indeed he was his nephew because going back to Antiochus Epiphanes' father, who was Antiochus III, when you deal with, I believe it was the fifth Syrian war, what he did was when he went, all right, into Egypt, remember it said, we read about that in Daniel 11 and where was it? There we go, 17, where it says, and he shall give him the daughter of women, right? That was Antiochus III's daughter, Cleopatra the first. He gave her to Ptolemy V, all right, and he was really trying to use her as a way to control Ptolemy. But as it says, she shall not stand on his side. Now, that union between the daughter of Antiochus III the Great and Ptolemy V, I believe his name was Epiphanes, they are the parents, okay, of this Ptolemy VI that we're reading about, all right, in Daniel 11 and 25. Okay, so Cleopatra the first, being the daughter of Antiochus III, that would make her what? The sister of Antiochus IV Epiphanes. All right, and so her offspring, which was Ptolemy VI, would indeed have been Antiochus's nephew. That's why it mentions that here. So Antiochus took Ptolemy VI, who was his nephew, under his guardianship, giving him effective control of Egypt. However, this was unacceptable to the people of Alexandria, who responded by proclaiming Ptolemy Physcon as sole king. Antiochus besieged Alexandria but was unable to cut communications to the city, so at the end of 169 he withdrew his army. And this was the first voyage or surge into Egypt, all right, from Antiochus Epiphanes. Okay, now let's read here. All right, this is under Antiochus Epiphanes going into wars and against Egypt and relations with Rome. All right, now it says, let's see, let's go to the main point. So it says the guardians of King Ptolemy VI Philometor demanded the return of Coel Syria. All right, actually, as a matter of fact, we'll read it from Ptolemy here because it'll give us more information. Let's go to the Sixth Syrian War. All right. So it says here, the Seleucid king, Seleucus IV, who had followed a generally peaceful policy, was murdered in 175 BC. And after 2 months of conflict, his brother Antiochus IV Epiphanes secured the throne. Okay. The unsettled situation empowered the warhawks in the Ptolemaic court, and Eulaeus and Linnaeus were unable to unable or unwilling to resist them, with Cleopatra the First no longer alive. All right, so at this time, all right, you had Cleopatra, which is the mother of Ptolemy the Sixth. All right, she was basically the queen regent. She was ruling because Ptolemy, her son, was too young. She ends up dying while Ptolemy is still young. So yeah, he's the king in name, but now there's these two regents, all right, Euleus and Linnaeus, who are ruling or making these things happen in the stead because Ptolemy is too young. So these two are pushing for this war. They're pushing to say, look, we got to get back the different portions in Syria, that your grand or your great grandfather or whatnot had, which was taken over by Antiochus. All right. So it says here, by 172 BC, preparations for war were underway. From 171 BC, both Rome and Macedon were occupied with the Third Macedonian War, and the Egyptian government considered the moment for war had come. All right. It says in October 170 BC, Ptolemy the Eighth was promoted to the status of co-regent alongside his brother and sister. So you first had Ptolemy the Sixth, and then eventually they promoted Ptolemy the Eighth and his sister Cleopatra the Second. So now all three of them are ruling, right? It says the current year was declared the first year of a new era. John Granger argues that the two brothers had become the figureheads of separate factions at court, and that these ceremonies were indeed to promote unity within the court in the run-up to war. Shortly afterwards, Ptolemy VI, who was now around 16, was declared an adult and celebrated his coming of age ceremony. All right, now we're going to jump down to the main point here. All right. Actually, you know what? Let's keep reading. It says they call it the Anacletaria. It says, although Ptolemy VI was now ostensibly ruling in his own right, in practice, Euleus and Linnaeus remained in charge of the government. It says the Sixth Syrian War broke out shortly after this, probably in early 169 BC. The Ptolemaic army set out from the border fort of Pelusium to invade Palestine, but was intercepted by Antiochus IV's army in the Sinai. The defeated army withdrew to the Nile Delta. Antiochus seized Pelusium and then moved on the Delta. All right, so that's why I said that he was going to stir up his power against the king of the south, because they were trying to take hold of Palestine. All right, so he launched that preemptive strike on their ass. So it says here, this defeat led to the collapse of the Ptolemaic government in Alexandria. Now, this is the key part. It says Euleus attempted to send Ptolemy VI to the Aegean island of Samothrace with the Ptolemaic treasury. Before this could happen, however, two prominent Ptolemaic generals, Comminus and Cineas, launched a military coup and took control of Ptolemy's government. All right, so they forecasted devices against him, all right, and took over his government. Okay. It says, let's keep reading. Where are we at? Okay, it says, as Antiochus advanced on Alexandria, Ptolemy VI went out to meet him. They negotiated an agreement of friendship. Keep this in mind because it's going to come up. They negotiated an agreement of friendship, which in effect reduced Ptolemy to a Seleucid client. When news of the agreement reached Alexandria, the people of the city rioted. Comminus and Cineas rejected the agreement, rejected Ptolemy VI's authority, all right, he shall not stand, and declared Ptolemy VIII the sole king. Cleopatra II's position remained unchanged. Antiochus responded by placing Alexandria under siege, but he was unable to take the city and withdrew from Egypt in September 169 BC as winter approached, leaving Ptolemy VI as his puppet king in Memphis and retaining a garrison in Pelusium. All right, so now going back to Daniel 11 and 25, it says, and he shall stir up his power against the king and his courage against the king of the south with a great army. This was Antiochus, all right, coming against Ptolemy. It says, and the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a great and mighty army, but he shall not stand. All right, because he lost the war. But after that, it says, for they shall forecast devices against him. And as we just read, you had two of his prominent generals that launched a coup and took over his government. And then after that, what happened? It says, verse 26, yea, they that feed of the portion of his meat shall destroy him, and his army shall overflow, and many shall fall down slain. Okay, now they that feed of the portion of his meat, as we just read, those that not only were in the court of Ptolemy, but those that he ruled over in Alexandria, all right, and the generals that had taken over his government all turned on him. Okay, so when it says destroy him, it didn't mean, to kill him, but they turned on him, all right, and they set up his brother as sole ruler. Why? Because he went and made an agreement with Antiochus, as we just read. Okay, I'll read it again. It says, when news of the agreement reached Alexandria, the people of the city rioted. Communists and Cineas rejected the agreement, rejected Ptolemy's authority, and declared Ptolemy the eighth the sole king. All right, they that feed of the portion of his meat shall destroy him. It says, and his army shall overflow, and many shall fall down slain. All right, because he ended up losing his government. All right, and when he lost that war, okay, his army, all right, there were a lot of people that fell down slain. All right, as a matter of fact, I believe it mentions it right here. All right, First Maccabees 1:18, and made war against Ptolemy, the king of Egypt, but Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled, and many were wounded to death. Okay, once again, and many shall fall down slain. Okay, as a result, all right, of that battle that they had. Okay, so now the reason that they turned on him, remember, was because he went and made an agreement, a negotiation with Antiochus. Okay, so now, all right, all right, now in verse 27, okay, it says, and both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief. All right, now we know the Hebrew word for heart is lab, which means your mind. Okay, so in both of these kings' minds, all right, in the mind of Ptolemy the sixth, and in the mind of Antiochus the fourth, all right, they both were thinking mischievous things. Okay, it says, and they shall speak lies at one table, but it shall not prosper, for yet the end shall be at the time appointed. Okay, now Ptolemy the sixth and Antiochus the fourth were quote unquote friends outwardly. All right, they spoke lies at one table, meaning the mischief that was in their mind for Ptolemy. All right, let me start with Antiochus. Antiochus, in his mind, or outwardly, he would tell Ptolemy, "Oh, well, you my nephew. I'm trying, basically doing this for you, so I could set you up. All right, back in Egypt, because you're my nephew and you could rule." But inwardly, he wanted to what? He wanted to have dominion of Egypt as well as Syria. Okay, but he didn't want to necessarily attract Roman attention, so he could instead set up Ptolemy as ruler of Egypt. But in reality, Ptolemy would be his puppet king. All right, so he would be the true authority. All right, that was the mischief in his mind. But outwardly, he made it seem as though, oh, yeah, you're my nephew. I'm trying to do this for you. All right. And in Ptolemy's mind, all right, though he's there, oh, yeah, we're definitely going to make this work, this alliance. In Ptolemy's mind, he's like, I see right through you. I know, you're not really doing this for me. Okay. And I know you're really trying to set me up as a puppet ruler, but that's okay. I'll go with that. So long as you help me get my kingdom back. And then after that, it's sayonara. If you try some shit, I could appeal to Rome, So in their minds, they didn't really trust each other, all right. But they spoke lies at one table, meaning they outwardly they had those agreements, that alliance, as though they were with each other. Okay. But as it says here, but it shall not prosper, for yet the end shall be at the appointed time. Now, what that means is that the alliance, the pseudo alliance that they formed, wasn't going to last. All right. Because at the end, what was going to happen at the end wasn't that their alliance was going to prosper, but that Antiochus was going to end up, coming back, but things were going to be different. Okay. So whatever they had planned at this moment would not prosper in the end time, which the Most High had appointed. Okay. That's why it says, for yet the end shall be at the time appointed, meaning whatever the Most High had set up, how this was all going to end off. All right. The end of the Sixth Syrian War, Gaius, Populus, Latinus intervening and all of that, that was going to be at a time appointed. All right. Which was really around around 168, 167 BC. All right. So I'm gonna stop it here. All right, simply because going into verse 28, and 29, 30, it's I'm gonna have to get more precepts in the book of Maccabees. All right, and it's gonna be a long video, so I don't want to over cramp the information. All right, all in one video. Okay, so like I said, I'm gonna end it off here, and then in the next video, Lord willing, I'll go into that. All right. So just to recap, the whole thing in verse 25 is dealing with the Sixth Syrian War. All right. When Antiochus and Ptolemy go to that war, Ptolemy ends up losing. All right. His military generals, all right, launch a coup and take over his government. Okay. And because of him going to form an alliance, a peace treaty with Antiochus, all right, the people of Alexandria, the people in his court, all right, his government, everybody really turns on him. All right. And he ends up still making that agreement with Antiochus, but we know that inwardly they were each looking out for themselves. But outwardly they made it seem as though they were in an alliance. Okay. So like let me all right, so yeah, that was pretty much it on that. Daniel 11, verse 25 to 27. All right, Lord's willing, that was edifying unto the elect. All right, and next time we'll go from 28 on down. So with that, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakakudash. Until next time, Shalom.